for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. My name is Tashad Myers. I'm co-founder, president of Bike Crews and Brews. Me and my twin brother Rashad, thank you. We created Bike Crews and Brews in June of 2020 with a couple of our friends when we ride on Sundays. BCB started to bring riders together all speeds to enjoy seeing the city of Louisville from a different view. We have grown into a family. Today we are here to use our voice to make it safer and inclusive for those who use bikes as a mode of transportation. We are excited to continue to change what it means to bike in Louisville and appreciate everyone's input. We are listening and decided to use our platform to speak to the current and future leaders of our city. I want to thank Logan Street Marketplace for letting us host tonight's summit here. Thank you for letting our bike community meet here, and you are a part of our story. I want to thank you all for coming tonight to the Bike Policy Summit. I also want to thank the candidates for participating. Tonight's summit will be emceed by Jody Delbert. Jody Delbert will be speaking next. Thank you guys once again for coming out.
How is everybody doing tonight? First off, I have a few things. Just welcome everybody to the first ever 2022 Bike Summit. Hey, show of hands. How many people biked here? All right. Look at that. All right. I love that. And so, again, special shout out goes to Tashad at Bike Crews Brews. To the amazing people here at Logan Street Market who have offered this space to us, and again, to all of the candidates who took time out of their evening to come here. This really means a lot that you guys are here. So to get things started, we'd like to invite Jennifer Chappell of District 15. She won her primary and is going to be the District 15 council person. And we have a lot to talk about regarding safety in District 15, the south end going all the way up to Goss Avenue. So without further ado, councilperson-elect Jennifer Chappell.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi everyone. Like Jody said, my name is Jennifer Chappell and I'm Metro Councilwoman-elect for District 15. I'm not here to get any votes tonight since I've already secured my seat, so this is the only time I'm going to plug myself. But I'll leave it to you all to look me up on social media on my website in order to learn more about me. But I will say, if you voted in 2016 or in 2020, I was on your ballot as a Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor. I currently serve in that role. I'm very passionate about our natural environment as well as our built environment. And I believe that we can marry those two together in order to create a more holistically better society. So, what is District 15? All right. We're using this very sophisticated system. Changing slides. So, and if you guys don't mind, I'd like to stand on the side if possible. Okay. All right. That way I don't really need my phone. Okay. So District 15, I like to say that if you've partied in Louisville, you've probably partied in District 15. So that means if you've ever gone to Derby at Churchill Downs, maybe you've hit up one of Schnitzelberg's plentiful pubs, maybe you have been to Iroquois Park for an event, maybe you have tailgated in Cardinal Stadium. So you can see all of the really wonderful neighborhoods that make up District 15. If you had very great eyesight, and this is a little more clear, you can probably see the labels, but it goes from a sliver of Germantown all the way out to Iroquois Park. It includes neighborhoods like Schnitzelberg, St. Joseph, Oakdale, Wyandotte, Hazelwood, Cloverleaf, and a little bit of Iroquois Park, the neighborhood. So this past Tuesday night, I was talking to a group of Cub Scouts, and they were such bright and remarkable young men. And I wanted to challenge them with an activity that helped them see streetscapes differently. When I was knocking on doors during the campaign, the number one question I was always asked was, can I get speed humps? And a lot of people would be shocked when I would say no. And the reason I would say that, well, there's a few. A lot of streets don't qualify. So if it's an emergency route, snow route, that sort of thing, if it's a state street, if ambulances use it, it can't be used as that. But also, speed humps are very expensive. You have to have two in order to get one installed. You have to have two. They're $2,000 each, so that's $4,000 right there for 2 speed humps. And it also doesn't serve a lot of our community. So it serves the people that are driving in cars, but really we should just tell people to slow down. And I don't think it's a very good investment to put into speed humps when we can do other things that calm traffic but also help our environment. So these Boy Scouts, when this piece of paper was in front of them, they only had a 4-lane street and on both sides houses. And so I invited them all to come up and do something that would calm traffic that wasn't a speed hump. They did sneak in some speed humps on me, but they said that those are very special speed humps that they detect how fast you're going and they fill up with some sort of cool material if you're going too fast and this, that, and other thing. I don't know, they might have invented something cool, but I'll leave Shark Tank to them. But the first thing that they put up was a speed limit sign. And then after that, they put up a stop sign. And then after that, if this was a little bit better, they were so detailed, directional signs, Louisville this way. And they put up a lot of signs, and then they put up a crosswalk sign, and then they put in a crosswalk. And we talked about these people who had to walk in the street. And so where would they go? So we put in sidewalks. And then if you're walking down the street, it might get really warm. Wouldn't it be great to walk in the shade of a tree? So we put in tree-lined streets, even though there's only 2 up there. But imagine tree-lined. And then we kept changing things. A bike lane went in. Then it went from a 4-lane road to a 3-lane road. And so you can't, these logs that are in the middle, those are actually drains because they said when it rains, the water has to have a place to go. And I thought that was so amazing that these kids are driving around with their parents or their guardians or on the school bus, and they're not looking at their tablets or phones or what have you, but they're looking out of the window and they're taking it all in. And so I told them all that they'd have a job when they turn 18 in Public Works and to come see me, but in the meantime, we're gonna stick with our scribbles. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that are going on in District 15 right now. Some of them are studies. I'm not going to dive into them too deeply. If you reach out to me, I'm going to be happy to provide more information on these studies, plans, groups, but I'm not going to dive in too deep because I'm sure you want to hear the people behind me talking a lot more than you want to hear me talking. But I just wanted to kind of make a mention of some of these things. Because so much of what we've done in Louisville, we've shaped our city around cars instead of shaping our city around people. And because of that, you know, in the 60s and 70s, we saw a lot of this urban renewal. And our dependence on cars allowed us suburban sprawl. We abandoned the downtown, we demolished it, we spread out, and we've lost a lot of connectivity and community. And I'm really excited to see that come back into our city. So here's a couple of things that are going on in District 15 in some of our major corridors, and I'm also going to talk about some of the things that, projects that actually have a little teeth right now. But that first one is on Eastern Parkway. And so from Cherokee Park over to U of L's campus, so if you know where the can opener is, right there. So this is the only plan that I'm going to show you that is an Olmsted Parkway. So in a lot of what we're doing in planning for the reconfiguration of the road, putting in maybe a center turning lane, taking it down to 2 lanes, putting in bike lanes, a lot of the conversation centered around enhancing and preserving that park-like feel. So putting in a lot of green space, planting a lot more trees. One of the cool things about this project, of note, right over Goss Avenue and Eastern Parkway, a fork of the Beargrass Creek goes through right there. And this plan, I really tout the people that put this in there. They said this would be a great recreational spot for the creek. And I think that that would be so phenomenal if we were able to use our urban waterways for recreational purposes. So in addition to a launch pad for kayaks and canoes right there on Goss and Eastern Parkway, Right down the street here at the CSO basin. The infrastructure is already there. We should be putting people into the creek right there to have a nice paddle down the creek. Sorry, I was going to say swim down the creek. Don't get there yet. Don't do that yet. So this is one that has been studied. The study is out there. It came out in 2020. Really excited to start seeing some of the improvements, some of the things from this plan actually implemented. I'm not sure when that's going to be. The next one is the Preston Street or Highway Corridor study. So this is currently underway. Any day now, they should be publishing the results of this study. So this is going to be the longest corridor that I talk about. It's 11 miles long, but it goes from downtown at the waterfront all the way out to Gene Snyder. And something that's really important to note about this is that you have really two different areas with two different resource concerns. So the area within the Waterson is going to be vastly different than the area that we're developing outside of Preston Highway. So it's been a very bulky conversation, but we've kind of broken it down into segments to see how we can make improvements according to what's there. And keep in mind that when we talk about corridor studies, we're not just talking about how we can make improvements to the road, we're also looking at things like what can we do from a zoning standpoint in order to facilitate more development. So those are all things that are considered within these corridor studies. And this is an example, so I had to cover up some of the text that was on the screenshot that I stole, but right underneath where it says Preston Highway, that's where Zanzibar would be. And you can kind of see an example of what Preston Highway could look like with maybe a bus lane down the center. You can see wider sidewalks instead of 4 lanes. It's taken down to 2, and you have tree-lined streets. Next is the Taylor Boulevard New Cut Road Corridor Study. So this one's another long one, but not as long as the last one. So it's 6 miles, and it goes from the Waterson Expressway all the way out to the Gene Snyder. And so this is a project, like I said, still underway. There's planning sessions that are organized. I can let you all know about the next one. But really excited to see what comes out of the study because some of the preliminary work that's been done shows what it could look like. So over here on the left, you have Colonial Gardens, which I hope that you're all making it out to the Jack-o'-lantern Spectacular at Iroquois Park in District 15 this month through October 31st. But you can see right here on both of them that putting these center medians with trees, making sure that there's a dedicated bike lane, and it's not just a painted lane, there's these small bollards that prevent cars from going into that bike lane. You know, for the people that like to stand at tarp shelters like that, you're gonna get a tarp shelter right there. So we're looking, like, I don't know about you, but I'd much rather live in the bottom 2 pictures than the dystopian ones that we're seeing at the top. So those are some of the studies that are going on right now in my district. And here are some of the projects that are going on in my district that you're gonna see a little bit of motion on sooner than later. So one of those is the East Oak Street intersection, and pardon me, you guys. So this is not my district. It says District 6, not 15. But I do support this, and I think that as we're talking about my multimodal transportation tonight, I really want to make you all aware of this. And this plan should be happening in 2023. But you can see right here, as it currently is, if you go to Full Stop or Dage's Paint, that's in this picture right here. So currently it's a 5-way stop. That's a pretty crazy intersection. So what the city is planning to do is take Schiller and make it a right turn only, move that intersection over, and all of a sudden we have a beautiful 4-way stop. But not only that, if you look in front of Dage's Paint right here, you're gonna notice a bump out. And that's pavement that the people are reclaiming. And that's space that we can put something like a pocket park. Still trying to figure out what to do with that area right now, but there's gonna be temporary bollards, and the city said that they're gonna play around with it, and so you're gonna see maybe some temporary things right there in the meantime before we really kind of decide what is the best use for that area. And of course, you know, bike lanes and all that fancy stuff. One of the things that I'm looking forward to tackling, and there's no movement on this other than it's a priority for me, right on the backside of Churchill Downs, you'll see Longfield Avenue. That's a picture I took while I was out campaigning. There's no sidewalks. Churchill Downs did put a bit in. I will applaud them for that. But there's, I don't know about you, but I really want to speed down that when I turn on that street. And this is somebody that doesn't like to do that. If I'm not on the expressway, but never. But anyways, I really want to see how we can improve this because there's a lot of people that live here, but also as Churchill Downs kind of builds up their fence, I want to make sure that the people on the outside of that fence have a really great existence as well. And also, when the eyes of the city are on Louisville in that first weekend in May, I don't know why they're having to walk through the neighborhoods that are the least invested in our communities. And that should be the place that we're putting our best foot forward. So, right? So next up is Goss Avenue. And I promise this is the last one that I'm going to talk about. I do have like 2 more slides and then I'll be done. But Goss Avenue, so Stutzelberg Area Community Council and German Paristown Neighborhood Association in 2015 had plans drawn up to redesign and reimagine Goss Avenue. It's a state street, so there's not a lot that we can do in terms of changing how the street actually operates, but there were a lot of things that we took from this plan and over the last 7 years, we've worked to implement. So hopefully you've seen things like the medians in front of Kroger that have been busted up, and there's now green space in those. We have new signage. We have new lined parking spots. The center median where it's only painted, but it does provide somewhere that people can stand when they're trying to cross the street. So we've been trying to implement these little things here and there. But we're reviving the project. Sure, we're reviving the project, and I'm really looking forward to putting a plan together for it, but not just a plan. I'm really excited to start getting work done. I think that the work that's been done right now on Bardstown Road is a great example for things that we can do on Goss Avenue. I don't think that it's going to take an elaborate plan and hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell us what we already know what we need to do. And so I'm really looking forward to getting that done. I had a survey done. We can plant 55 trees. I can go ahead and plant 55 trees. I don't need a planner to tell me that. But I do need a good arborist in order to tell me what native plants to plant, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. But the reason that I say this is because planners hear from me a lot that I'm tired of the carrot being dangled in front of my face, and I'm ready to take a bite out of it. I'm really tired of seeing the disinvestment that we've seen, especially in our infrastructure in our communities. And when we create these plans, we're planning and we're planning and we're planning, but we are not putting those plans into action. And those plans gather dust or they become antiquated. And that's why I have this picture up right now of Haux. This is a picture of Haux in 2015. This is a picture of Haux today. It's stunning. But in 2015, when we made these plans, George Hauck was still alive and going into that corner store every single day. We could not have predicted the development that went on. And now we're having to play catch up with where we are with our plans. So I just wanted to say, I always like to say, I've never felt like I've outgrown Louisville, but rather I'm growing with it. I'm really excited to continue growing because I've never felt like we have reached our potential. I don't know why I love this city so much and be able to say that, but I know that we can do better, and I hope that you guys will grow with me. There are going to be growing pains, but we're going to get there, and I'm really, really excited to do it. So if you want to contact me, please, you can go on my website, you can get me on social media, you can also email me at any time. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm really looking forward to changing Louisville with you all.
Before we have everyone speak, because we have 4 candidates, we're going to have 5 minutes per question. Is this better? Yeah. All right. I know that's 5 minutes per question is not too much, but I really am just so excited to hear from everyone. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is showing the BCB survey that we took. We had 140 members of Bikes, Crews, Brews take this survey regarding what they wanted to see in the city. That's fine print, but we wanted to ask whether or not they would use a protected bike network similar to the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. And of those responses, 83% said they would use one downtown, and 78% said they would use it in the Highlands. That's a clear majority. There are some other use cases in the South End, in St. Matthews, and the least likely to use was in the East End because higher speeds, wider lanes. Next slide, please. This was a survey of every intersection in downtown Louisville that a Bike Crews Brews member felt unsafe or at danger. That's over 100 different intersections, most of which are on state highways, which is a little bit harder and more difficult to actually change. However, the red dots are in the Preston Corridor Plan. That's already being looked at. The green dots is the Broadway All the Way Plan, which is also has federal funding to get in the planning stages. So it means that there are ways that we can solve some of these intersections in a relatively short amount of time. There is hope. And the third slide is just a little bit of branding. If we want to have a protected bike network instead of bike lanes, we want to make sure that there are hotels and businesses and ways that we can incentivize places to get rid of a parking lane and put in something protected. So we called it the Bourbon Byway. This is a mock-up that we did where all of the state highways and the city roads that are in green and purple connect to tourist places, Olmsted Parks, Jefferson Memorial Forest, Churchill Downs, going all the way up through Old Louisville to every single major event center and arena in downtown. This would be relatively easy to implement if we had a straight shot down one of the 3 roads that actually go under the interstate on 264. Whether that is Floyd Street, 3rd Street, or 4th Street, we need to have some kind of plan on those 3 state highways, or specifically, if we can focus on one, to get people from Churchill Downs area to their downtown hotels and businesses without necessarily using a car. Otherwise, there would be no way for them to actually spend money at Churchill Downs safely and still be able to enjoy the festivities. So wanted to bring that up to everybody because that is something that we are actively looking for and actively looking for businesses and neighborhoods to help get onto this idea of the Bourbon Byway. Indianapolis can't be the only place with a protected network. So again, I'll get off my high horse because I know what y'all are really here to see, and that's the candidates. So thank you so much, and we are going to be doing introductions. If y'all have a stump speech, if y'all want to do an intro, and because this is a bike forum, I have to put in a little plug. What is your favorite city? Yeah, sure. If you can go one more slide. What is your favorite city to bike in or visit? And are there any lessons we can bring from there to the road infrastructure in Louisville? Again, don't have to go on with that question, but wanted to food for thought. So, Bill, if you don't mind going through.
So I am a sitting mayor in Jeffersontown. So some of the things I'm going to tell you we're doing. But when you talk about the favorite city, what I'm going to surprise you at is someplace you're not really thinking of is when I was your age, I did this. It was the Wild Valley, going through the vineyards in France. I actually took a month off when I was in sophomore in college, and our family, our kids, went over there, and it's interesting taking a bike across in airport and over to Europe. Of course, it's in during this time frame, but you had to have a certain weight. Your backpacks had to be, we had them silk, we had to have clothes that you could wash. We lived in the youth hostels in order to afford to do it. And we went through the bikes, and you talk about a place that these interstates were country roads to us. And you'd be riding down on your bike and semis would be passing you. Now, I advise you, if you ever go over there and you go through the wine country, you can stop at any vineyard and test the wine. But those people that are on bikes should learn that you don't keep testing wine and testing wine and testing wine, because by the time you get to the end, you're having a hard time keeping the bike straight on the road. I just want to let you know that. But when we come back here, because it was a lot of fun, guys. I mean, we the bike and everything and enjoy the scenery. So I am a true, I've done this, I've been there. unfortunately at this age, with the hips and everything, I can't do it like you all are doing right now. But in J-Town, we realized that the next generation wanted to be mobile in a different way than a car, and especially in our park. So we actually went in and got, I love it when it does that. It goes all the way down. We actually did a bike and ped path through our park that was off-road. And we did a 20-foot path all the way through and made sure it was level and had crossings that were lighted and went through. And then the other thing we looked at is through our city and through different parts of our city, connect our city. And then the other thing, the last thing we did is, and I hate studies, anybody does studies, but many times to get federal grant money, you have to have something to show them this is what we're going to do. And I realized we have the Louisville Loop that's going around, and I'm a firm believer we need connectivity all across the city to the loop. So we realized sometime in the future, Taylorsville Road's going to be expanded, and they're going to do something different to it. And I didn't want the excuse to say, well, you want to put a bike and ped path, but we don't have anything in writing. So we went ahead and paid, even though it's not in our city, we paid to have a study done from Jeffersontown out to 21st Century Parks for the bike path that will go there. It's interesting that we had two different ways of doing it. One was a flyover over the Gene Snyder. And then in the future, we look at what does it look like. So we joined forces with other cities and Metro to do smart streets. And in order to make smart streets, it's only walking, riding, biking, and crossing the street. Because the problem we have right now is, well, all of us probably don't cross at the intersection all the time. I would say every one of us but they have bump outs and they have a way of making it safer, because that's one of the number one items of people getting hurt. And I noticed Jennifer showed the sidewalks. Just to let you know, because I'm on KIPTA's board, the transportation board. We have all sorts of studies there, but Louisville does not implement them. And this is 80-20 money. The feds are giving us money to put bike paths in, to improve roads, and Metro has a bunch of money sitting in there for sidewalks. Every year they have an allotment that gets put in there for sidewalks for connectivity. The feds believe that we should be connecting our different roads and our different sidewalks amongst it, so that the finish from one point to another, that's sitting there. So that the one thing the next mayor of Louisville, I hope to get your vote for me, is they have to understand what it means to be portal around this community, whether it's in a TARC bus or a TARC van or a safety mobility like TARC 3 needs to be totally looked at, or biking or walking or riding around our community. So, and understand how to work with KIPTA and how to use federal grant money to make our money go farther. Now, sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, because sometimes you deal with the federal government, you're not going to get it done as fast as you should. And sometimes it's easier just to save the money, because you'll have, the council people have funds, and many times the council members will work together in order to get projects done in their community. So the future of what Louisville looks like will be a welcoming community for everybody, and everybody will have a chance to be mobile around the community at all parts of Louisville. So the connectivity has to go a wagon wheel out and a circle around both outside at the Louisville Loop and on the inner part, where you have the mobility to go, as you said, to see all the sites when you want to see it. The only thing I can tell you that we're used to is we usually have a time clock here to tell us when to stop, because we know that we can keep on talking. So, and 5 minutes is a long time. I appreciate that, and I will stop, because you all have a long night ahead of you. So I'm going to turn it over to Craig Greenberg to come up and talk. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Bill Dariff, the Republican candidate for mayor. Oh, we got more volume. Now, okay, now when the next guy comes up, you turn up the volume. Thanks, guys. This is a tough crowd, okay? But you know, I know where the volume switch is, right next to where I'm sitting. So those that didn't hear me, I get to tell you the story all over again. So this is what our community should be about, seriously. We should enjoy our community, we should laugh. We've been through a pandemic, we've been through civil unrest, we've been through an economy that's, we don't know where it's going. And we want to bring back the smiles and enjoyment and the health to our neighborhood, where we're feeling that this should be our community that we're proud of. We want to make this community something that you're proud to be here, and something you would tell somebody else, this is the place you should go. So rather than repeat the whole story about France and drinking wine on the Loire Valley, how we did that when I was younger, I will turn the mic over to the next candidate. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil, and thank you to all of you all for coming this evening. What a great group this is at a wonderful location. Thanks to Medora and Mike Safai for hosting us here at Logan Street Market. We need more facilities like this throughout our entire city. My name is Craig Greenberg, and I'm proud to be the Democratic nominee to be your next mayor of Louisville. And I hope to have the opportunity to work with you, all of you, to move Louisville forward in a new direction, to make it a safer city, a stronger city, and I think a lot of what we're going to talk about here tonight is also a healthier city. In terms of bike cities, the city that comes to mind that has made the best investments in cycling that I have visited is Bentonville, Arkansas. I am the former CEO of 21C Museum Hotels, and we started working on a project there. Our third 21C Museum Hotel was in Bentonville. And so for about a decade ago was the first time I went there, and to see what they have done is investing in recreational and other non-recreational, but actually just for transportation purposes, bike lanes and bike infrastructure is probably second to none. And that would be a great model for some of the things that we can do here in Louisville as we talk about the future of cycling and improving transportation in general. Are you going to ask those questions?
Yes, I am going to ask
Okay.
questions.
I just want to make sure I didn't say that. So, a couple things. First of all, I'm not the greatest cyclist in the world, but I do love to run, and I'm a big runner. And when I launched my campaign for mayor of Louisville, I thought it was important that I get out to every corner of the city, to see every corner on foot, but also to get to know people in every corner of the city. And so I literally ran through all 623 precincts. And what I learned, some of what I learned during that experience is very applicable to what we're talking about here tonight. Because the only time I ever had fear in running through all 623 precincts had nothing to do with people, it had nothing to do with dogs or other animals chasing with me. It had to do when I was running on streets that had no infrastructure for pedestrians or cyclists. And when I was running out, particularly in the southern and southeastern parts of the city, on snowy days, in long, narrow, windy, hilly roads where hundreds and hundreds of new homes are being built, and there's no infrastructure, that was the only time I was scared, because no one slows down. I probably had never seen a runner on these streets before, but I had to get between the precincts and through the precincts, and there was no other choice. And what that made me realize is our need for investment in infrastructure is huge here in Louisville. The good news is we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to address these big challenges and make meaningful change. And that is because of the Infrastructure Act. There was the American Rescue Plan that allocated $388 million, but then after that, the infrastructure bill that was passed. And there are literally there are billions of dollars available nationally for investments in transformative infrastructure projects in cities like Louisville. We need to be very aggressive, creative, proactive, diligent, energetic, with a sense of urgency to go after these funds to make meaningful investments here in Louisville. We should do things like complete the Louisville Loop, and that might not be a connectivity issue. Maybe that's as much tourism as anything else, but that would be great. But then we need to also make some of the changes that Jennifer was talking about, get those done, that we've talked about a lot, and that I know you all advocate for as well. So those are some of the things that I'm not running for mayor to make incremental change. That's not an option. It's not of interest to me. We need to make transformative change here in Louisville, and this is one area that we can do it. We also need some other fun things I'd love to do. I'd love to get the K&I Bridge reopened and make that a pedestrian and cycling path as well, so we can have a loop, not just on our side of the river, but fully connecting to Indiana as well. I think that would be a unique thing. That would be great for economic development. People want to visit unique places that have authentic and unique things to do, particularly outside. And so investing in cycling and pedestrian infrastructure is not just about connectivity, but it's also about economic development and tourism. The same goes for parks. We must improve our parks that currently exist, as well as continue to invest in new parks like the Maple Street project. I love that branding of the Bergen Byway, by the way. That's great. So let me stop there as an introduction. I'm excited to talk more about this. And the last thing I'll say is continue to put your ideas out there. Because one thing I know we're going to talk about tonight is the Department of Transportation within the city government. That literally, as far as I can tell, went from one of your tweets from Streets for People to a great idea that as a mayor I'm proud to adopt, to borrow your idea, and hopefully to help make it a reality. And I know you all have a million great ideas also. So I look forward to continuing the conversation, and I hope to have the opportunity to work with you all as your next mayor of Louisville. Thanks a lot.
Good evening. Oh, why I gotta go through this every time? Every time I say good evening, it's always good evening. Good evening. Much better. I am Minetta Crittenden Lipkatier, and I am running for mayor on the independent ticket. And I must say, I am honored and blessed to be here. Biking means a lot to me, especially growing up in my neighborhood. My best friend and I always tried to stay under the same rim with the same bike. My favorite bike I ever owned was purple. Anybody got a purple bike out there? Okay, well somebody does. Well, I had a purple bike and it was one of my favorites, and then I had a teal colored Stingray. Anybody know about the Stingray? And it had this basket on it, and I just thought I was real cute riding it. My favorite remembrance of bike riding happened to be in Red Level, Alabama. I know, right? Nobody's ever heard of it, but that's where my father was from. And then just the street, our city over, my mom from Opp, Alabama, OPP. And we used to say it was a hop, skip, and a jump to Red Level. All right, so in Red Level, I learned safety about biking. I had a cousin who used to tease me, and he always used to call me a city folk. And so I guess he thought in his mindset he was going to teach this city folk how to ride a bike. So we go up the hill, and in Alabama, you know, you have levels of heights in the roads. You have smooth and plain, then it gets a little elevated, and then it goes really elevated. On top of that hill was a bull, and it was in a pen. And my cousin said, I'm gonna start right here. No, I'm gonna tell you how he said, we're gonna start right here, and you go first. I said, okay. He said, now remember, the bull don't like red. What color do you think I'm wearing? Exactly. So he puts me on this bike, and he gives me this push, and I go down this hill like, ah! And you know the witch on Wizard of Oz, and she's pedaling like this. Well, I couldn't even get my feet on the paddles because they were spinning so fast. And then he turns to me and he says, I forgot to tell you, you ain't got no brakes. That's what I learned about riding in Alabama. But it was the most joyous time when he wasn't kidding around, because it was filled with so much adventure, so many trees, and the element was just pure and clean, and I love stuff like that. I would be a writer today, but it's not safe. It's not safe. And one thing I really want to challenge us in doing is making it safe. From the tots who drive the tricycles, to the grown folks who ride the bicycles, the scooters, the motors, the, what do you call the ones that they ride in the city? Electric scooters? Yeah, those. And to educate us on how to respect those that are on the bikes, motorcycle riders as well. Too many people are losing their life, and too many accidents are happening because of us not paying attention, are unaware of the bike laws, as well as just pure and simple courtesy. We've lost the ability to be kind. When you see someone, when I see someone riding, I yield away. Somebody behind me might give me a horn, but guess what? He don't know I'm trying to save a life. I don't think that we need to take away from what you all already have. We need to improve it and make it even more safer. We have to learn how to ride in unity. And when you ride, you want to be able to feel safe. You want to be able to be protected. And I believe that we have to educate our city people who are unaware of the laws. We have to introduce them or make them more familiar with them. And maybe sometimes we have to get a little bit stronger in the law. Because I think people sometimes think that it doesn't matter. But life matters. Doesn't it matter? It don't matter? It does. It matters because we want to ensure that when we ride through our city, or other people ride through our cities, they are riding through and they are safe in their journey. I have been blessed to have bikes all my life. I want to go back to bike riding, but I don't want to go back to bike riding the way things are now. You really put your life on the line when you are riding. You're being safe, and you know you're being safe, but you don't know if the people riding in their cars and whatever are paying attention to you, right? So we want you to be safe, and I want to be safe. So as I close, and wait a minute, my friend stuff like that? Wow! Okay, all right, well, as I close, again, my name is Minetta Crittenden Limketeer, and I would love to be your next mayor. God bless you.
Last but not least, we got Martina Cudahy.
My name is Martina Nichols Cudahy. I was a Democrat until about 8 months ago, and I decided I did not like the offerings, and so I'm running as an independent to be your mayor, and I am on the ballot. I have kind of a rocky history with bicycles. I was the oldest of 4 children. I had 4 children. I had 3 younger brothers who always wanted everything that I got. I was the oldest, so I was the first one in my family to get a bicycle for Christmas. I did not want a bicycle. I wanted a chemistry set. They bought me a bicycle anyway. And get on. So I got on the bicycle, rode just a short distance, fell down, skinned my knees, skinned my knuckles. My brothers got my bicycle. Had a similar experience with skates sometime later. So never was into bicycles much. Fast forward in time, I marry, and guess who I marry? A bicyclist who raced. He did road racing, he did track racing. We had bicycles hanging from the ceiling everywhere. We would buy a bicycle before we would buy a washing machine. He was always trying to get me on the bicycle. My favorite story about him, and that's where I get this funny name from, I hung on to it after I dismissed him, I guess. One of my daughters is here, so I'm trying to be careful in how I trace this history. And don't let me go over the 5 minutes. One of my favorite stories about my bicyclist husband, I have to say that he really wanted me to bike with him everywhere. And he just could not understand why I would not. And so at one point we were visiting his family in Western Kentucky. He bought, unbeknownst to me, instead of a washing machine, he bought a bicycle wheel or 2 down in Western Kentucky. We drove down there to pick it up. And I refused to get on that bicycle. He was so proud of it. But my mother-in-law did. My mother-in-law did ride around Calvert City, Kentucky on that bicycle. Fast forward, we moved back to Kentucky and moved over to Southern Indiana because I was going to Indiana University, Southeast over there. Got another bicycle, and this bicycle I got on, and it was a Raleigh, and it was a fold-up Raleigh. And it was such a fun thing to ride in Jeffersonville So I tell you this long story to help you understand my progression and how I do understand people with varying attitudes about bicycling. And then also in Jeffersonville, and you know, I did a lot of traveling in my professional life, and I was always amazed when I went to these other cities how you would see bicycles on the street and buses, and everyone seemed to be sort of in sync. I'm sure it wasn't perfect. But my experience in Jeffersonville was one where you felt safe on the street. Now, I don't know how it is now, but you felt safe on the street. So I think that there are things, I definitely think Louisville, Kentucky is way, way behind in many areas of transportation. We should have access to many modes of transportation in this city. And unfortunately, the decision makers are people that can't relate to a lot of these ways that we are used to getting around. I no longer own a car. I no longer own a car. All right. I knew that would get applause sometime. But people think you're odd because you don't want to own a car. I gave the last car I had to one of my granddaughters, and after she had it for like 2 years, she gave it back to me and said, I don't want a car. I say that to say we should not have to own a car to live in a city. I'm going to come back and see you. Because you know how crazy that sounds to almost everyone else in the city. So people who do not understand that you don't need to own a car, that you need to be able to take buses and trains and other modes of conveyance to get places, do not make the best policy. And I think the people in this room, this last question, are there any lessons we can bring to the road? These are the people that can bring the best lessons because we have the range of experience and needs that's going to better inform policy in the future.
Thank you, everyone. So, yeah, amazing. So, just because we are a little bit pressed for time, we're going to be consolidating some of these questions and giving 3-minute answers. So I just wanted to show some of these questions here. One of which is there has been discussion locally on consolidating different metro departments into one Department of Transportation to streamline road projects countywide. We all know what happened to that Nulu Market idea, and it's been implemented and funded for 10 years now, and not a single thing has actually been done. And what we wanted to ask, again, next question, is what are your thoughts on a connected network and protected network for tourists and residents to use on downtown roads, similar to what we mentioned? And the third question is, there are multiple KYTC, which is state highway projects involving complete streets. For your timeline in implementing these large redesign projects on these state highways like Broadway, Main Street, Market Street, Phoenix Hill, Chestnut Street corridor, what is your timeline in your 4 years as mayor to get things done? And again, we can go back to the first one, we can go back to the second one, but really what it boils down to is, do you believe in protected, connected networks around our state highways? And do you think that you can get things done in a 4-year term? And if so, what would your priorities be? So I know that Martina had the longest wait, so I'd like for her to go first. Thank you so much.
I won't take the full 5 minutes. You know, I've been in this city long enough to see time after time we've had these studies, public input, we're all going to talk about how to make it better, and nothing ever comes of it. Under the Carnegie administration, something's going to come of it. I have a vested interest because I'm walking on the streets. I'm taking the bus most often. So we're really going to make things move forward. And one of the things that's closest to my heart is the need to centralize transportation concerns. In my business life, I often had to drive up into western Virginia, all over the southeast corridor. And because I don't like to drive, I didn't learn how to drive until I was almost 30. I don't like to drive. I like the idea of taking a bus, a Greyhound or whatever, or the train. And as you know, to get a train from here is like crazy. And what I would often run into in arranging my business travel is the difficulty in connectivity from Kentucky to almost any place. And then even within the city, you can only take a bus so far. So I think that transportation needs to be under a it needs to be under a common umbrella. So we can figure out ways how to connect the folks who want to ride so far on their bicycle and maybe hop a train to someplace or whatever. So that would definitely be a priority for me as your mayor, is to bring that all up under the umbrella, get TARC shaped up under that umbrella. What quality? I'm looking for people who know what it's like to have to travel and to be on the road. It's not going to be, I'm not so down on city planners, because I think city planners definitely have a place. And I, being a researcher, love studies. But we need to start taking up the recommendations that are made. We do a lot of studies here and then just put it on the shelf. So I don't know that I've answered all the questions. What was the next one? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, now that's a hard one, because as your mayor, I'm going to be viewed as a problematic figure by the powers that be. So I suspect anything that I try to initiate is going to require a lot of support from you to get it done. But it is time to get off the dime and do what we say we're going to do. It is time to get off the dime and be what we say we are. You can't say, oh, this is a wonderful city to visit, when even the people that live in the community can't get a bus, can't get a train, can't. So, I can't say that I know what the timeline is going to be, because I know there's going to be a pushback. You just know it's going to be a priority. Here's the other thing. My administration will be an end to giving lip service, going after grant money to do all these marvelous things. An example I will give, and unfortunately I don't remember the name of the grant, but the city went after a grant to improve street travel, for wheelchairs, pedestrians, that kind of thing, in the downtown area, within a particular downtown area. And in the grant, it was all about helping, folks in wheelchairs and folks in the urban core. It was just such a wonderful, wonderful tale. But that money went into perfecting the sidewalks on 4th Street for the tourists. I do not begrudge them that. But a city that gets money in the name of the citizens, then applies it to make it pretty for the tourists, while we're still stumbling on sidewalks, that's going to be a yesterday thing.
You all have to forgive me. I am challenged with the light. I have my answers, and I want to give them to you as clearly as I can. I need to know, first of all, is your organization a 501(c)? It is not. Is it something that you guys would look into becoming? Okay, well, I'm only asking because a lot of times you can receive grants and be able to initiate things that you want to do without having to depend on a lot of city money. The city money will go toward what you need it to go toward, but at the same time, be able to have money in your own bank that you can move forward without, I believe you said, waiting for the projects that you are waiting for the city to do. I don't believe that, first of all, I do believe that safety is the first key thing when it comes to riders of all kinds. I don't believe that you have to wait for safety measures. I believe the painting in the street needs to be deeper and defining, because a lot of times when we do the white, it fades out, and it's your line, my line. I believe that is the way to get started. I want to see us implement education to the public. When a person knows how to be right, they will do right. If I'm just assuming and going with what I think is right, that's what's causing accidents. Because somebody is saying, oh, you're in my way, no, you're in my way, and then we don't give way, and then bam, we have collided into each other. Our thing is keeping riders alive, keeping drivers alive, and making sure that the projects that you want to see come into reality happen. You gave us an opportunity to look at Indianapolis Cultural Trail. It's beautiful. We can have the same, but we have to work together in order to get it. I don't have a time frame, but I know it's important. And it would be one of the most important things that I would work toward in order to making sure that you all had the connectivity going on, that you had the proper routes that you need, and that you were able to ride in safety, unity, and peace.
Thank you. Well, first, in terms of the Department of Transportation, as I mentioned earlier, I think that's a great idea that folks in this room and others have advocated on social media, and I definitely would like to include that as part of a reorganization, not just Public Works, but how we work with TARC, with PARC, with the Parks Department, with the Office of Planning, with Planning and Zoning. All of that should be coordinated so that we truly are developing streets for the people, complete streets. That should be our focus and our guiding mantra as we're going forward with planning, moving out into the future. So thank you all for that idea. As I mentioned, keep the good ideas coming, and I wholeheartedly embrace that. In terms of the connectivity, I support that, and I think we should start on some of the main thoroughfares. Councilwoman-elect Chapel talked about the Preston Highway corridor, roads like Preston Highway, Dixie Highway, which has had a lot of work done, Bardstown Road, Shelbyville Road, US 42, Poplar Level, some of the main thoroughfares we should address first to ensure that folks can get, regardless of where they live in the city, have an opportunity to either bike or have better pedestrian access, and let's start creating more walkable neighborhoods. That's another thing with development. As we're planning for development, we should be focused on walkable, bikeable neighborhoods where people can live their entire lifetime, where you can walk to school, job, restaurant, services, grocery store. That great cities have many, 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 many walkable neighborhoods like that. We in Louisville should aspire to have more than we currently do. Right now, I believe we have an opportunity. Secretary Gray at the Department of Transportation in Kentucky, I think he is committed to a lot of these things. He has been a great friend of mine for 25 years, and while he is still there, I'd love to take this opportunity to put the squeeze on him to invest in Louisville with state funds, and then as I mentioned also, we must leverage these federal funds that are once in a lifetime opportunity. So let's bike up to Washington, let's drive up to Washington, let's do whatever we need to get DC's attention, to get those federal funds invested here in Louisville. I have a sense of urgency to do this. I encourage you all to continue publicly and privately putting your ideas out there, and let's make them happen.
Okay, that's more efficient, right? So that's the way that we need to take the transportation part of it. We need to make it more efficient. And the person that has done this, I realize I hate the word, it's not my job. It's not my department. Because then you get so frustrated, and I don't care what department it is, as we travel around the county, I hear the same thing. Whether the people are trying to get housing or whether they're trying to get permits. I mean, just to say a simple term, doesn't have anything to do with bikes. There was one group that tried to get a tent permit, and it took 6 weeks to get a tent permit. So our system we have downtown, whether it's in transportation, permitting, or public works, is inefficient. We need to look at the whole thing, bring it back to where somebody can work the system. Because if we want to put a bike path in, it has to go through so many different hands and so many different places that everybody has an excuse that, well, it's over on Joe's desk and it will soon be over on mine and there's a stack there. That's not acceptable. When you say what is the most important project to do, right now as mayor, I got 13 construction projects going and 2 of them are, three of them are bike paths or bike connectivities. And I realize that I mean they're in the process of bidding or actually performing the job, not standing there waiting to be done. We have to take the priority. Louisville has the grants right now to do the project you're talking about, because it being a board member of KIPTA, we grant the money every year. They come in with projects, they ask for the projects, and then we grant the money for them. They just don't make it a priority for you guys that it has to be done, and that's where the priority has to be. And it's 80-20 money. So what better way to build these things on 80-20 money in an economic turn down that we're having? So it's there. So as we look to the future, we talk about complete streets and infrastructure money. We, as I mentioned, we're joining forces with all the different cities around town, including Metro, to have a study. I'm not one that likes studies. I know you like studies, but we have to do a plan in order to tell the feds how we want to spend the infrastructure money, and we're doing that now as a complete streets for Louisville and all the metro area, so that we can take the money that's in that infrastructure and spend it in here. So if you want to do the infrastructure money, I asked you a favor, because as KIPTA moves around, they constantly have meetings in places. You all should call KIPTA and tell them I told you to call, because I'm on the board, and have a meeting here and talk to them. I mean, they're very welcoming for what complete streets look like. And you need to get your opinion in there so we adjust it accordingly now. So please call KIPTA, ask them to come down, and ask for what projects are in the loop right now, so that we can get this thing moving as a unified force. It's going to take more than the mayor, more than Public Works. It's going to take the community to say, this is what we see our community looking like in the future, and this is how we want to lead it in the future. We want to do it now. To the point that if the federal money doesn't come in, we make it a priority and we budget it through Metro.
No, what is KIPTA for people who aren't well versed
Oh, sorry.
in government acronyms?
Kentucky, Indiana, Transportation. Kentucky, Indiana Department of Transportation. It's our version. We haven't. I'll explain what it is. It's all the MSA, which is all the different counties here and across the river, join forces. County judges, mayor, work together on transportation and also social programs that will come here. And that we look at anywhere from crossing the bridge, go to Indiana, or Oldham County, and we're most especially interested in Oldham.
Can we just give another round of applause for all of the candidates? Seriously, again, to everyone who's seated here, y'all have taken time out of your day and your evening to be here, to hear from the people that have biked here. And again, it just brings us hope to see that people are willing to talk about the infrastructure, people are willing to talk about saving people's lives. I don't know if you've heard about some of the most recent near collisions and near deaths by some of our members, and it's really hard some days to have to deal with just risking your life just by going to work or going to these different areas that you pay taxes on these roads. And by being here tonight, you've shown that we can probably, and I think we're going to make big changes in our city. And thank you so much. I'll give you the rest of your time to network with the rest of the voters. But again, y'all, remember that you have the power to make change. You just have to make sure you call the right people. And so with that, thank you all, and we're going to have one of these next year.